They say nothing happens by accident. And you didn't find this video by chance. Something brought you here, a whisper from the universe, a silent nudge from your deeper self. And if you're watching this, listen closely. Your winning season has just begun. But what does that really mean? It means something inside you is waking up, something ready to move forward, not someday. Now, the energy of change, of victory, of breakthrough, it's not waiting for perfect timing. It's already here, and it's waiting for you to recognize it. In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain on what a winning season really looks like. Not the polished version you see on social media, but the hidden process. The part most people skip, the sacred shift that happens in the invisible before anything shows up in the physical. You'll learn why some people suddenly start attracting everything they once struggled for, why things begin to align, not by force but by frequency. We'll explore forgotten truths that have been buried under noise, stories of people who turned everything around by doing something most ignore. They changed how they saw themselves. You'll understand what Neville Goddard meant when he said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not just as a nice idea, but as a working principle of reality, because this isn't about blind positivity. It's about claiming your creative power. And here's the part no one talks about. Your winning season doesn't start when life gets easier. It starts when you get clearer, when you stop chasing and start aligning, when you stop waiting for the outside to change and go inward instead. See, most people try to change the world by pushing it. But the real shift happens when you change your inner world so completely that the outer world has no choice but to follow. We're going to talk about the invisible bridge, Neville's idea that once you fully imagine your desire fulfilled, life begins to rearrange itself to reflect that inner state. You don't have to know how, you just have to hold the state. And you'll hear stories, powerful, real ones, about people who made this shift, not just celebrities or success stories, but everyday people. A woman who visualized her healing, even when the doctors had given up. A man who imagined being free from debt. And one by one the steps appeared, not overnight, but always on time. This isn't magic. It's law, the law of assumption, the law that says whatever you assume to be true will harden into fact. But here's where it gets even more interesting. There's a reason you're seeing this right now. Something in you has reached a point where it's ready to receive. You might not feel ready, you might feel tired, unsure, even stuck. But timing doesn't always ask your permission. It simply arrives. And if you stay with me through this video, I'll show you how to step fully into that energy, how to stop sabotaging your rise, how to stop rehearsing failure, and how to embody the version of yourself that wins every time. Not because of luck, but because it's law.
We'll break it down step by step. The mindset, the assumptions, the daily shifts, the invisible acts that begin to carry weight in the physical world. You'll leave this video with more than just motivation. You'll leave with tools, quiet ones, subtle ones, but powerful beyond measure, because this is your season. Not because I said so, but because something inside you already knows. You're done shrinking. You're done repeating. You're done waiting. This is your reminder, your confirmation, your call to rise. Welcome to Ignis Mindset, where we speak the truth your soul remembers. If that resonates with you, if something in you is nodding silently, subscribe, because we're just getting started. And the best is yet to unfold. Before we talk about the signs, the changes, the breakthroughs, we need to understand something deeper. What is a winning season, really? Because if you're waiting for confetti, applause, or some loud declaration from the universe, you're going to miss it. It doesn't always arrive with fireworks. It often begins in silence, in subtle shifts, in the quiet moments where you start to choose differently, think differently, feel differently. Neville Goddard taught that everything begins within, that what we assume to be true becomes true. So your winning season doesn't start when you get the job, or when they call you back,
or when the money shows up. It begins the moment you assume the feeling of already being there. The moment you decide that you've crossed over into a new chapter. That's the real beginning. A winning season is a period of focused growth. It's not frantic. It's not rushed. It's not loud or dramatic. It's focused. It's intentional. You begin to look at your life not with criticism, but with clarity. You start noticing where your energy goes. You put it back from places that drain you. You begin to invest it where it actually feeds you. That's a win. It doesn't look like a trophy. It looks like peace. Neville spoke about the inner man, this deep, silent self that holds the keys to our entire reality. He said you must live from the end, from the state of already having what you desire. In a winning season, you don't chase. You align. You start embodying the version of you who already has the peace, the clarity, the love, not waiting for evidence, becoming the evidence. That's how you start winning before anyone sees it. Most people think winning means arriving, but in truth, it's a becoming, a slow, steady becoming. You start choosing foods that nourish your body, not out of guilt, but because your body is sacred now. You start speaking to yourself with softness because the old voice, harsh, punishing, no longer fits who you are. You move slower. You listen more. You stop performing. You start creating from stillness, not survival. These are the invisible victories. You wake up and for the first time in a long time, you don't dread the day. You find yourself responding calmly to the same triggers that used to spiral you. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't truly listen. You stop begging for permission to rest. These are wins. Your winning season isn't about proving. It's about remembering. Remembering that the power is and has always been within you. It's in how you see yourself. Because how you see yourself determines what you expect. And what you expect is what you allow. Neville said, change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. And that's exactly what a winning season is. It's the season where your self-concept shifts, where you stop thinking of yourself as someone who's stuck, someone who's always overlooked, someone who's never quite enough. And instead you start identifying as someone who's aligned, someone who's worthy, someone who's guided. You start carrying yourself like you belong in every room you enter, not because of arrogance, but because you finally believe you do. There's a frequency in that, a quiet power. You begin to attract better, not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did, because your assumptions did, because your inner state rose to meet the future you once dreamed of. Neville would say, you must persist in that state, not visit it occasionally. Live in it. In your winning season, that's exactly what you do. You live in the state of the wish fulfilled, even on the hard days, even when it doesn't look like anything's happening yet. Because you know, you're no longer planting seeds and digging them up to check if they've grown. You're nurturing them, trusting the process, trusting the law, trusting yourself. This is not blind hope. This is conscious assumption. Every time you choose to believe in the unseen reality that lives inside you, you strengthen it. Every time you walk, talk, and breathe like it's already done, you build a bridge between the invisible and the visible. That's the essence of your winning season. And no one else needs to understand it. No one else needs to validate it. Because it's not for them. It's for you. It's the reward for every time you kept going, when it would have been easier to stop. For every night you whispered, I don't know how, but I believe it's possible. For every morning you got back up, even when life hadn't changed yet. Those are the sacred victories. The ones that build a life rooted in something real. And when that inner shift is complete, the world can't help but respond. Because everything you experience out there started in here. Everything begins in the mind. Before anything shows up in your world, before the relationship, the opportunity, the healing, it begins with thought, with assumption, with inner belief. Neville Goddard said, man is all imagination, and God is man and exists in us, and we in him. The eternal body of man is the imagination. That's not a metaphor. That's the truth. Your winning season doesn't start when things around you look different. It starts when you think differently, when your inner conversations shift, when you begin to assume something greater is possible, and that you are already becoming it. Your mind is the seedbed of everything you call reality. Nothing you desire can arrive and stay if your mind still rehearses, lack, still entertains doubt, still identifies with limitation. So this season, it's mental first. And that's good news, because it means no one else has to give you permission to begin. No one needs to agree with your vision. No outside condition needs to shift before you do. You start here. You start by noticing what stories you've been repeating to yourself, quietly, even unconsciously. Stories like, I always mess things up, nothing ever works for me, I'll never catch a break. These are not just harmless thoughts. They are instructions, directives, orders sent from the mind to the body, and then into the field of life. And life, being the faithful mirror that it is, reflects it all back to you. That's why your inner dialogue is sacred. It's not random. It's creative. It's law. You must take inventory of your assumptions, not just what you hope for when you're feeling good, but what you expect when no one's watching. Because expectation is always louder than desire. You might say you want success, but do you expect it? Or are you still quietly waiting for something to go wrong? This is where the winning season truly begins, with mindset, with self-concept, with the shift from I hope it happens to it is already mine. And you don't need to overhaul your life in one day. That's not how this works. You begin with small things, small habits, small assumptions. You begin to honor your mornings, not as something to rush through, but as the foundation of your day. You drink water with intention. You stretch your body and speak kindly to it. You write down one clear goal, not because you need to prove something, but because you're learning to direct your energy. You start each day with one small win. That win could be making your bed. It could be brushing your teeth while affirming, I am safe, I am grounded, I am worthy. It could be taking 5 minutes to visualize your future self already living your dream. These may seem insignificant, but they are not. They are the bricks that build a new identity, because winning is less about dramatic outcomes and more about quiet consistency. It's built in the invisible places where you choose to show up differently. When you win the first hour of the day, something happens in your spirit. You start carrying yourself differently. Your mind becomes less reactive, more centered. Your inner world begins to stabilize. And when your inner world is steady, the outer world responds in kind. Neville said, change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. This is the path. And yes, it will feel strange at first, unfamiliar, maybe even fake, because you're not used to living as the version of yourself who wins. You're used to waiting, doubting, trying, failing, trying again. But now, you're assuming, you're deciding, you're shifting, you're walking into your day like someone who already knows they're supported, already knows they're aligned, already knows they're being guided. And that assumption is the key. That's why these small wins matter, because they reinforce the identity of someone who follows through, someone who honors their energy, someone who can be trusted with dreams, with vision, with purpose. Stacking small wins isn't just a productivity tip. It's how you build belief. Each time you keep your word to yourself, you send a message to your subconscious. We do what we say we'll do. We are who we say we are. And that belief, once rooted, begins to bear fruit in every area of your life. Soon, people will notice something different about you, not because you told them, not because you performed, but because energy speaks louder than words, and the energy of someone who's winning, truly winning, is unmistakable. It's not loud, it's not forced, it's not desperate. It's calm, quiet, grounded, free. And that energy begins in the mind. It begins when you stop chasing and start embodying, when you stop begging and start assuming, when you stop reacting to life and start creating it from the inside out. So the next time your mind wants to spiral, wants to go back to old habits, wants to rehearse the old story, pause, breathe, remind yourself that version of me is gone. I don't live there anymore. And return to the breath, to the silence, to the still, steady knowing within you. You don't need to fight your old thoughts. Just stop feeding them. Starve them with new vision, new inner language, new patterns of attention. Choose presence over panic, trust over doubt, faith over fear. Each choice is a win, and those wins add up. They shape your day, they shape your mind, and eventually they shape your life. Because winning isn't a moment, it's a mindset, a decision, a direction, and it all begins within. Before you can truly walk into your winning season, you must know what that season actually looks like for you, not someone else's version of success, not society's standards, not your past self's limited hopes, yours, your vision, your path, your calling. And for that, clarity is everything. Neville Goddard said, to be conscious of being poor while praying for riches is to be rewarded with that which you are conscious of being poverty. That truth hits deep because it means that what you picture in your mind, what you accept as true about yourself, is what forms into your world. So defining a clear vision isn't just about daydreaming, it's about alignment, inner agreement. It's about deciding what your winning season actually looks like, not as a distant fantasy, but as a vivid and living truth you begin to inhabit. Now, what does that life look like in detail? Not just the headline version. I want more money, or I want to be happy. That's not enough. Your subconscious doesn't respond to vague desires. It responds to specific impressions, specific images. It responds to feeling. So sit with this for a moment. What does a winning day feel like in your body? What do your mornings look like when you're in flow? What kind of work are you doing that lights you up? Who are you surrounded by? What energy do they bring into your life? How does your environment support your peace and focus? Get detailed. Let yourself picture it clearly. Your home, your health, your finances, your freedom, your sense of purpose. Not from a place of striving, but from a place of choosing, of assuming. Neville taught, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That's not a cute phrase. That's the foundation. Because everything you will ever manifest must first be felt in imagination. Before it's visible, it must be lived within. You're not trying to chase a vision. You're becoming the person who naturally aligns with it. That's why vision is more than just a goal. It's an identity shift. But clarity alone isn't enough. You have to believe in the vision you see. And for many people, that's where things stop. They get the picture. They get excited for a moment. But then the old voice returns, the one that whispers, who do you think you are? That's not realistic. People like you don't get to live that kind of life. And if you don't catch that voice early, it begins to shape your self-concept. And what you believe about yourself will always override what you say you want. Neville was clear about this. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. So if you want to live your winning season, you must start seeing yourself as someone who wins, not later. Now, that belief is a choice, a muscle, a pattern. You don't wait for your circumstances to shift before you believe. You believe, and then the world adjusts. You shift your state, and your life responds. Belief is not a feeling that magically arrives. It's a decision to keep aligning, even when nothing outside you has changed. It's an act of spiritual courage. You might not feel confident yet. That's okay. Confidence isn't the root. Belief is. Confidence grows from belief. You believe first. You hold the vision first. You wake up and say, today I live from the end. Today I embody who I choose to be. That's where your power begins, not in hoping something will happen, but in assuming that it already has. And when doubt rises, and it will, you don't fight it. You don't argue with it. You simply return to the vision again and again. You choose belief the way you choose a thought, with intention, with practice. You visualize not just once, but daily. You let the image of your future self become familiar, real, grounded. You see them in your mind's eye and feel what they feel: peace, power, purpose. You don't just say affirmations. You become the one who already lives the truth of them. I am successful. I am aligned. I am worthy. These are not wishes. They are commands. When belief and vision lock in together, your energy becomes magnetic, and the outer world has no choice but to mirror it. This is the law. This is the pattern. This is why defining your vision matters so much. Without clarity, you drift. Without belief, you stall. But with both clarity and belief, you become unstoppable. So ask yourself right now, do I have a vision that excites me, that stretches me, that feels true? And if you do, are you giving yourself permission to believe in it, to act like it's already on the way, to show up as the version of you who knows it's done? Because your job is not to figure out how the vision arrives. Your job is to align with it, to embody it, to prepare for it. Neville said, the world is a mirror, forever reflecting what you are doing within yourself. So your real task is internal. It's not hustle. It's not struggle. It's focus. It's inner alignment. It's self-concept. You become the kind of person who believes they are worthy of peace, success, love, impact, and then you act accordingly. You say no to what drains you. You protect your energy. You build habits that match your vision. You stop shrinking. You stop deferring. You stop disqualifying yourself from the life you came here to live. And when the old beliefs show up, because they will, you don't give them power. You acknowledge them. And then you choose something higher, something truer, something that aligns with your vision, not your fear. You write it down if you have to. You repeat it out loud. You look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is who I am now, not someday, now, because that's how belief works. You don't wait for the evidence. You become the evidence. And when belief meets vision, something begins to move within you, around you, through you. Doors open, paths clear, people notice. But more importantly, you notice. You start to recognize yourself again. Not the version you settled into out of survival, but the version you were always meant to become. The vision becomes a frequency, a language your entire being starts to speak. And suddenly the winning season doesn't feel like a miracle. It feels natural, expected, inevitable, because you believe. And that belief shaped everything. Confidence doesn't show up out of nowhere. It's not something you wait for. It's something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice, action by action. Neville Goddard said, the illusion of free will is only that man thinks he thinks. What he meant was this: most people aren't really thinking in alignment with truth. They're reacting, repeating, circling around the same fears and doubts and calling it thought. But real creation begins when you interrupt that loop and choose something different, something higher, something aligned. Confidence is one of those higher states, and it doesn't come from perfect conditions. It comes from movement, from doing the thing you said you would do, from stepping forward when it would have been easier to stay still, from showing up while still hearing the old voices in your head, but not listening to them anymore. That's the real secret. You act before you feel ready. You move before the fear is gone. You walk into the unknown while the old self is still trembling. Because if you wait to feel confident first, you'll never move. You'll stay caught in the loop of hesitation, waiting for permission that only action can provide. You don't believe in yourself and then act. You act, and that's what builds belief. That's how the subconscious mind works. It watches what you do. It doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to evidence. So each time you follow through, Even in a small way, your subconscious takes note. It says, this is who we are now. Someone who keeps their word. Someone who moves in alignment. And over time, that becomes your new normal. Not loud, not arrogant, just steady, grounded, clear. And that clarity becomes your power. But there will be days you don't follow through. Days you slip. Days when the old habits pull you back. That's not failure. That's growth. That's part of it. Neville taught that everything that happens in your life is the result of your inner state. So even your setbacks, even your delays are mirrors pointing you back to a belief that still needs to shift. So don't run from failure. Don't fear the fall. Every stumble is a teacher. Every closed door is a redirect. Every no is preparing you for a bigger yes if you let it. If you stop labeling every loss as the end and start seeing it as a refinement, you're not losing. You're learning. You're not broken. You're being shaped. You're not behind. You're becoming. This is the growth mindset Neville hinted at, long before it had a name. The knowing that what matters most is not what happens to you, but what you assume to be true after it happens. Do you assume defeat or do you assume strength? Do you spiral into self-doubt or do you return to the vision? Every moment gives you that choice. And every time you choose growth, you chip away at the old story, the one that said you're not enough, you can't handle it, you should stay small. You outgrow that story not by thinking differently, but by living differently, by showing up, by speaking up, by acting in the direction of who you're becoming, even when it feels shaky. Because shakiness is not a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're stretching. That's where real confidence is born, not from comfort, from movement, from risk, from standing in the discomfort of being seen, even if no one else sees the vision yet. You do. That's enough, because your belief is the seed, and your action is the water. You water it daily with intention, with repetition, with faith. You get up and try again, not because everything is perfect, but because you are different now, because you're not defined by the last outcome. You're defined by your decision to keep going. Neville said, persist in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. That's not passive. That's active. That's a choice to move through resistance, to treat failure as feedback, to let every setback become soil for deeper roots. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to grow, to evolve, to expand. And that expansion comes through practice, through doing, through living into the version of yourself you've seen in imagination and backing it up with action over and over again. You don't need to feel confident to start, but if you start, confidence will come quietly, steadily, in the background of your being, not as hype, not as ego, but as peace, as knowing. And when that knowing settles in, something shifts. You no longer fear the next challenge. You welcome it, because now you understand it's not here to stop you. It's here to grow you. You are no longer just reacting to life. You're responding with intention. And every choice, every action, every lesson adds to the foundation of the self you are building. One day, one step, one bold move at a time. Before the world sees your strength, you must feel it in the silence. Before you master the outer game, you train in the inner one. As Neville Goddard said, change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. But that kind of change doesn't arrive all at once. It's built through repetition, through mental reps, emotional reps, spiritual reps. You train the mind like a muscle, not in comfort, but in discomfort. When your thoughts spiral, when doubt returns, when old stories echo in your mind, this is the gym. This is where you lift. You don't resist it. You meet it. You breathe through it. You let it rise and fall. And every time you stay present instead of fleeing, you grow sturdier. Every time you reflect instead of react, you take back your power. That reflection is key, not just to what happened, but what you believed about what happened. In that moment of unease, what assumptions surfaced? Did you believe you weren't enough, that everything was crumbling, or did you pause and remember who you are? Most people rush through this, looking for distractions, but those building strength, real strength, they sit with it, they ask questions, they listen, and then they align. Because Neville's teachings were never about blind wishing. They were about revising, seeing where you lost your way mentally, and guiding your thoughts back into truth. And that guidance, that takes practice. It takes daily rep. That's why silence is not a luxury. It's essential. Each morning before the noise begins, you sit not to fix or force, but to feel, to breathe, to listen, to remember. This is your sacred ground, your realignment, your daily reset. In that stillness, you visualize, not as fantasy, but as fact. You see your future, not as a far-off hope, but as a lived reality. You step into the version of yourself who's already there. What does peace feel like in your chest? What does strength feel like in your breath? What does success feel like in your body, your posture, your presence? You feel it now, because the subconscious doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. It only receives what you repeatedly feed it. When you feed it visions of clarity, calm, and confidence, you begin to believe them. And this isn't about escaping reality. It's about shaping it, not avoiding what is, but becoming what could be. You take that energy and carry it into your day. And when the day tests you with pressure, distractions, and unexpected detours, you stay anchored, because this is where presence becomes your superpower. When tension rises, you don't run, you don't retreat into fear. You stay, you breathe, you ground. One breath, one step, one decision at a time. A champion isn't someone who never feels overwhelmed. A champion is someone who stays centered in the storm. That centeredness is trained in silence, embodied under pressure, strengthened through practice. So when your old triggers appear, when you face rejection, delays, doubt, you don't collapse into reaction. You pause, you breathe, you remember, I've trained for this, and then you act, not from panic, but from power. You move intentionally. You speak with clarity. You choose to respond from the grounded truth of who you are becoming. With every moment like this, your identity shifts. You stop waiting for life to calm down in order to feel okay. You become the calm in the chaos. You bring the clarity into confusion. You walk with power even when the path ahead is still forming. Neville said, your assumptions it persisted in will harden into fact. So you persist. You assume peace. You assume strength. You assume purpose, especially when it's hard. That's the real training, not pretending nothing hurts, but knowing pain doesn't define you, not having all the answers, but trusting the guidance within you, not rushing to the finish line, but showing up fully in every step. You don't have to feel powerful to start, but if you start and keep showing up, that power will rise. It will rise in your breath, in your choices, in your recovery, in your presence, because you've trained your mind to meet life, not with fear, but with faith, not with chaos, but with groundedness, not with reaction, but with revelation. Every time you choose stillness over noise, vision over fear, presence over panic, you're building the mental strength that will carry you forward. You are becoming it now. You are already in it. It all began the moment you decided to train. If you're seeing this, your winning season is here. Not someday, not when everything feels perfect. Now, because life responds to your assumption, not your hesitation. So don't just listen. Commit. Start today. Begin with something small. One powerful thought, one intentional breath, one habit that aligns with who you're becoming. This is how you shift momentum. This is how you become unstoppable. Not by waiting, but by choosing. And if this message stirred something in you, if it reminded you of your power, like this video, to anchor that intention, Subscribe to our channel for more teachings that realign you with your highest path. Your time is now. Act like it.